I just successfully got away from remembering that the Ultimate Fighter even existed, and that motherfucker's been trending for the last 3 days.
Oh, that's talking about the worst 6 weeks of my life.
Yeah, that bad?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Is it really?
That shit was horrible.
But as a trainer?
Yes.
Was that bad? Why?
Why? Because the Neil Magny was on the opposite team.
I love oatmeal. Go ahead,
and
sorry.
Neil is the brightest spot that came out of that season.
Mhm.
We had dudes who were either too green, they were journeymen, and they didn't fucking listen. So, and Roy Nelson's a coach.
Yeah.
Right?
Mhm.
So, you know it could go one or two ways right there.
Chicken
All right,
shit,
so Roy
right?
comes in. Roy comes in and says, "Look, I've done this show before. My job is to get you from one fight to the next." And I'm like, okay, that sounds good. And then I follow that up by, I am not your coach. I'm leaving my guys. I'm leaving my gym to come coach you. All right. So he's right. I'm not trying to break down your style and who you are as a fighter in 3 days and try to rebuild you. That's stupid. I'm going to kill your confidence. So I'm going to give you little tidbits to try to get you through the next fight. All right. Now, Roy brings in everybody as guest coach. Like he had Nate and Nick Diaz, he had Jake Shields, he had Gilbert Melendez, he had Mike Powell, he had Martin Compton, he had Rashad Evans,
Jesus.
he had Forrest Griffin, he had Hoist Gracie.
Mm-hmm.
They only showed you Forrest Griffin in the final show.
Mhm.
People don't even know Hoist was one of the guest coaches.
Yeah, I didn't know that at all.
That's wild they didn't show him.
Yeah, and there's a picture on my Facebook of me and Rashad on season 16, but I don't even think they showed the Rashad episode. Or if they did, it was very brief. But all our fighters, what they do, except for a couple, they shitted on us.
Oh fuck.
All these coaches, they now they talk shit. They let us know in the green room before the semifinals they had been talking shit. So me being me was like, all right, well, I'm a results guy. Since y'all think Shane Carwin's group did so well, how many do they have in the semifinals? There's like 2. How many do we have in the semifinals? 2. So I guess it really didn't matter on which way you went. I like, but Shane's whole crew, they left their families, their gym, their loved ones, all in Colorado to come out here. So all they could do was focus.
And Shane didn't even want to do the show, if I recall. I mean, he did it, but
he did. Yeah, he did it. He didn't want to do it, but but they left all their responsibilities back home.
Yeah,
for this bullshit.
All your coaches here have family here. We have to do shit according to what we do here.
Yeah.
So if I have a child, if my child needs to be picked up at noon, fuck your practice.
Yeah.
I'm going to get my child. when I didn't think half of you were any good anyway.
You're not locking me in a house with a confessional room.
Right. I mean, and it turned out I was right, because only a couple of them went to the UFC and only Neil did anything there. But on our team, Colton Smith, he kind of got a raw deal.
Okay.
Colton won the show. Colton was and still is a full-time soldier, part-time fighter. He had only had 3 fights coming in to the show.
Wow. And he won.
But that's because he's ultra disciplined and he's good in isolation. You wasn't going to catch him drunk or doing any of those things. He was going to mind his P's and Q's and train and stick to who he was as a fighter. He was a wrestler. He was going to take everybody down.
So exactly the kind of person they didn't actually want on the show.
Yeah. But and that's what he did.
Right.
But when he fought, like everybody he fought had more experience than him. And they were better MMA fighters than he was. But he had that target of being the Ultimate Fighter winner. And it's like, yo, he's not ready to be the Ultimate Fighter and to be showcased because he's 2-1 as a fighter, as a pro fighter. And I mean, outside of the exhibitions on the show, as they call it. So he didn't have a lot of experience. And I mean, let's see. Yeah, he fought some monsters right out of the gate. I can't can't even remember who it was. I believe he fought Robert Whitaker.
Oh my God.
Yeah, who had 12 fights at the time. Who was a big 170 pounder. Before he moved up to 185. Yeah, so everybody he fought had way more experience, and they were ready to be in the UFC. And Colton wasn't, because Colton was still a full-time soldier. And now, where's he stationed? Who does he get to train with? Does he have good enough training partners to get him where he needs to go? And that just didn't happen for him. And that contract's horrible anyway.
Right.
Yeah,
I don't know what it is now.
he got Robert Whitaker right off the bat. Then he got Michael
Yeah.
Chiesa. Then
Yeah, and
Diego Ferreira.
Yeah, and all of them were better MMA fighters than
Oh,
what
yeah.
he was at that time. Here's a 2-1 kid who's a part-time fighter, full-time soldier. So he really didn't get a chance to showcase who he could have been as a fighter. And then the rest of our team, I don't even know if anybody else of our team even went to the UFC. I think a couple did, but they didn't live up to what they could have been. But this is how our season was. So
I remember that season. Like I've always loved Shane.
yeah, so
And I remember like that was my return to Tough, because I don't like the show. I haven't liked the show since day one. I never got into it. I never liked it. I never watched it. I didn't care if it was GSP or Connor or John, Ronda. I don't give a shit who you put on there. I don't care about it.
yeah, I didn't really like the shows. I liked the bringing everybody in the house. I didn't like the isolation. I didn't like getting, that you gave them alcohol all the time.
It's a reality
trains.
show, dude.
Yeah, nobody trains like that. And,
I mean,
some people do train like that.
I mean,
but I just didn't like that. I didn't like the fact that, and even some of the guys inside the show said, yeah, if we ran out of food, they might be slow in getting to some of the food we like. But if we said we ran out of alcohol, that was there.
Yes, right away.
Wow.
Well, but that's what I was gonna say. Like, I hadn't watched it in so many years because I just never really liked the show. But they got Shane on there. I knew he didn't want to do it, but he did it anyway. And I was like, all right, I'm gonna watch it. And I started watching it, and I was like, but this is even worse than I remember. And like, I still to this day. So I'm so glad you're saying all this, because when I watched it, I was like, is it this bad, or is this season pretty bad?
Yeah, and then we had guys who were not natural 170s. I mean, I don't like Neil and a couple other dudes were the only real 170 pounders. You had Bristol. Bristol had fought as high as 205, and he was a natural 85 pounder. And him and Roy had beef, so Roy didn't want him on our team. But that was the only fighter we knew, because he had trained at Extreme from time to time.
Right.
And so they had issues. And then I knew Colton a little bit because one of my other fighters at my gym from Iowa knew Colton. So he'd actually come into my gym when he was doing all the physicals and stuff for the show. And then we had other guys. I just had no idea who they were, other than some of them were journeymen. And it was like Michael Ricci was a 155 pounder. Julian Lane at that time, Let Me Bang, bro, was 155 pounds. And he's actually a good kid. He was a good kid. The problem was he was young. He had 2 kids. He had a 2-year-old, and he had a child that was a few months old before he went on the show.
Wow,
right?
that's a lot.
He loses, and it went all downhill from there, because he was like, Coach, I got nothing. I got 2 kids. I ain't got no job. And, he lost, like, I don't have a career. So he's acting out. And that's what that was. I thought the most poignant moment of the show was after he lost, and he's saying he ain't got nothing, and he's very upset. I pulled Pat Barry from the other team.
I literally was about to be like, Pat, ketchup and rice story.
Yeah, I pulled Pat in from the other team. I was like, Pat, talk to him. You are homeless until you won a fight night bonus. Let him know it's going to be all right. Pat talks to him. They don't put any of that on the show.
Oh man,
which is a shame, because like everybody, especially at that time, loved that.
Yeah. So, but he gets drunk and starts talking about Let Me Bang, and then you have the other idiot, Michael Hill from Canada, who moron. egging him on, and now that's what he's known for his entire career. But he's more than that. Actually, he's a good dude. He has 4 kids. He's a good father. He's gone on to carve out his little niche, and he's done MMA. He went on another UFC Ultimate Fight season, and then he's been in bare knuckles. He's not a bad dude, but you get these snapshots of that's who everybody think this kid is.
I mean, it could have been worse. He could have been Gabe Rudiger.
Yeah, it could have been.
Junie Browning.
And Junie's another one.
Gabe's at least a nice guy.
Yeah, Junie came and trained with us a little bit, but I think by the later, after season 3, everybody became affected. It was sort of like American Idol.
Yep.
The first couple seasons of American Idol, there was bad singers, and they thought they were good, but then you just got people who wanted to be on TV, knew they were bad singers.
Yep.
And just wanted to be on TV. So then I think you just started to get people who wanted to act a fool and see what would come of it. Junie had some talent, and I think had he harnessed it and been in the right situation, he could have been a decent fighter. But once he started wilding out, then he became a target, and then people just wanted to beat him up because they can make their name off of the name he made on The Ultimate Fighter. And so that just put him in a bad spot.
Building downtown, building downtown, building downtown, building downtown.